You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
3, 2, 1 podcast begin. That's the beginning of the podcast.
I just saw something so cute.
What was it?
So how you comment on my doodling and how like I have to doodle a lot to think, to speak. And when I'm hearing, if I'm doodling, I'm like somehow putting it in my brain more. I've got a couple just little, like nothing, just little doodles on your page.
You do? You doodled on my notepad.
I doodled on your notepad. And while you were talking, you started doodling on my doodles. Right? And I'm like, you're a doodler too. We're a couple of doodlers.
I'm an old school doodler.
Yeah.
I've been doodling for years, babe.
Oh.
I just have lost a connection with the doodle.
Yeah. Bring out the doodle.
I think doodling...
How do you reconnect to your doodle? We can help you with that.
I think doodling is... what's the free writing? It's a form of...
It's a form of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a form of free writing, of connection. And it's just this artistic expression that you find flowing through you. And yeah, it should probably be something that like... For me, I like... Because I'm going to get really distracted here with these doodles in a minute. But I do symbols when I doodle. I have a hard time doing actual like things. Yeah. I do symbols. And then I'll find symbols in the symbols. And the next thing you know, it's kind of mandala-ish. It's kind of, it's all sorts of different things. But yeah, now that you've brought it up, I think I may just doodle this whole episode. So you're going to be responsible for maintaining the conversation here.
I have all kinds of word doodles that I do. I do a lot of symbols, a lot of that. And then I also do like flowy. Like sometimes it turns into like flames and flowers. I have a flower that I've done forever, and I just realized yesterday on our learning that it's the crown chakra.
Is it?
Yeah. So it's like all that lotus that I'm like, oh, I know how to draw that.
You've been doodling the crown.
That's the thing. So I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I've got my symbol that I've doodled since junior high.
Yeah. So we got doodles. I like to, I miss like pencils, doodling with pencils.
You're a bigger fan of that?
Because then, well, you can like shade it. So when you do it, then you start to smudge it with your finger and you can like shade doodles.
You got a lot of art in you.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Should I get you some pencils and some doodle paper? And
I have all those things.
Let you just start going to town?
It's not what you think it is.
I think it's beautiful. I think your doodles are beautiful.
My doodles are, that's
if
funny.
We grew up together in junior high school, what would if you liked me and you were going to send me a note?
Junior high, I was going to send you a note.
What would that note say?
Junior high. Remember, we were different people in junior high.
I know. That doesn't mean, right?
I never sent, that was like notes. I think that would be like elementary school.
You didn't pass notes in junior high?
I did pass notes in junior high, but it wasn't a like, I like you notes. Like I wasn't.
What kind of notes were they? To like
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, gosh, I don't know. I can only think about like notes that I passed with my friends that were just like platonic friends.
Yeah. Well, what if we were platonic friends?
What if we were platonic friends?
What would you say to me?
I didn't write to guys. Occasionally there was the like you'd have to write, but like that didn't really, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see. What would I say to you in junior high? I would not show you any emotion. I would be oblivious to any emotion that would be back at me, or I would then stop talking, depending on how. I would want to be like, I would probably be talking about hanging out, but not just like we would be talking about a party or something, or going to get drunk or something. I'd want to hang out with like, if I was to write you a letter and I liked you, I would be trying to like see if you were going to be at this place or what you were doing, just kind of like getting that little feel so I could like meet up with you at the party or whatever, or so-and-so's house, because we're going to
hang out there.
We're going to hang out. We're going to drink. We're going to smoke. We're going to do something. I started young, but look at how like I've grown.
Yeah.
I've grown. I feel like this is like calling me out.
I think mine would be something very simple.
Yeah. God.
Stephanie.
I just got really uncomfortable. I'm like, I think I started sweating. Like, what was this fun? Okay. Oh,
Stephanie,
I'm all right now.
I like you. Do you want to go out? And then I would circle. Yes. Like do the whole.
Junior high?
Yeah, of course. 6th grade.
Okay. Well, 6th grade's still elementary.
Okay.
Where I grew up.
Sorry.
It's K through 6.
Yeah.
And then the same building was 7 through 12, but 7th and 8th was designated as junior high.
Okay, so
in the building with high schoolers.
In 7th and or 8th grade, that's the note that I would have sent you.
Okay, 7th or 8th. Okay. Well, you can see how it's hard for me to like really break down junior high because I was always in the high school building. It was elementary school to hanging out with seniors.
Yeah.
Because that's healthy.
It was also...
Oh, what would I say? Let me try again.
Hold on, because I was thinking about the level of like notes and passing notes became such a... such an important part of life during that time period.
Yeah.
Where it was like you had to come up with creative ways to... Like sometimes it was slipping notes into their locker. So then you had to figure out which locker was theirs. And then...
Benefits of a small school, you knew. There's no figure.
If you're passing notes in class, we had all of these like super intricate ways to pass notes without the teacher finding out.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking of like how smart we were.
Yeah.
All it like, like stashing it at the pencil sharpener or doing all sorts of different like techniques and tactics.
I'd be so scared that somebody else would see it.
To try to get the notes to the people and pass them back and forth.
Okay.
And I'm seeing it now from the adult that I am and how incredibly comical it must be
to watch these
to
little
teachers during that
like
time.
Yeah, nobody saw that.
We're just walking up to the pencil sharpener.
Probably like yawn, cough.
It was totally all of those kind of things where you'd keep it like under your foot and then just like slowly slide your foot out, hiding the note underneath your shoe, and then like the other person's foot would come and meet your foot, and then you would transfer the note.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were these just with people you liked?
Not just people I liked. I mean, this is the same thing like with friends and all sorts of different things. Yeah.
Okay, you're opening up like I'm starting to like tap into this memory bank that was closed off.
It was previously inaccessible.
Like the one that I can remember the most, and I think it's the one that I trusted the most, was passing notes like in the hall, going from class to class with my friend Allie, who I need a message.
She the one that you ran into the other day?
No, she's
okay.
the one that I went and saw before gas prices made it so it was too hard to go see her. But like it was just like the hall. She was like 2 grades older than me or higher than me, 2 grades older. And so we would just pass notes, and then there was the notes that you would pass back and forth with your, like, did you ever, okay, this is probably why. Did you ever have, girls be catty. There was some cattiness. So like when you would, like people would read, if you were vulnerable, and then they would let other people read your notes.
Yes.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So maybe
I remember that all the time.
That's probably why you're like, what would you say? I'm like, I wouldn't tell you I liked you in a note.
I would confess my love, like this big long, like why I like you and all these different things.
Oh my gosh.
And then I would see them reading it together.
Oh, right. That
And I would just be like, oh my God, I'm the biggest fucking idiot in the
Oh
entire
no.
world. I was just devastated. Yeah. It was a nightmare. So many things during that time period of like that transition from adolescence into teenage.
If you happen to say you liked somebody, like not a note to somebody, but you liked somebody to your friend. I had good friends. I don't know why we're not still in contact. I'm in contact with But you say you like somebody, and then they would show that guy. So yeah, I'm like, no wonder I'm like, I'm not gonna be vulnerable. Like I learned not to be vulnerable in writing.
Where do you think all of that comes from? Like it's such an interesting time period of life, because I think it's so many societal programs and archetypes and different things that are starting to really be fleshed out, right? We go from playing in elementary school where it's just play, like you're not really thinking about the opposite sex, and you're not really thinking about all of these other things that exist, because it's not necessarily just thinking about, and it's not even the opposite sex, obviously, right? But thinking about attraction to other people. You go from not having that to having that, but it also brings this whole other scope of like awareness about things. It's just weird.
Thinking like, I definitely had attraction, like from the get-go. I always had a boyfriend. Right. Like that was something that like I should probably, never mind. I almost said something really stupid. What? I don't know what it's like to be single. Yeah. So that's not like an experience. Like even like boyfriend, girlfriend, silly, snot nose punks, little elementary cutie pies. Like I've always had a boyfriend. And I remember like always having crushes. Yeah. Always having crushes. So I don't like that transition never like started for me. That one was like an always. I always had a boyfriend. Always had.
What do you think that is?
I actually don't want to dive into that because I think that's something that I don't want to dig into right now.
Okay. I'm the same though. You're not alone in that.
What do you think that is, Craig?
For me, it's codependency.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's an unhealthy, like it's a fear of being alone. It's seeking validation externally. It's thinking that my worth is only there if I have a girlfriend, or if not even if I have a girlfriend, but it's if somebody likes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like codependency is formed from childhood, not wanting to be alone because you always were alone. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways. Yeah, it's not healthy.
I was alone.
It's not healthy at all. And we could do an entire series of season 23 of the podcast where we talk about our codependent issues and how we're healing them.
I was a natural extrovert. How about you?
I get those confused.
Extrovert and introvert. So extra, think like extra big, extra loud, extra public. I don't know. Okay. I was a social person.
Really?
I was. You're surprised.
It's quite the contrary today, Steph.
I know. You're like, what?
It's quite the contrary from the time that I've known you.
Social. I was always like I was either out or trying to be out. Now that was limited a lot because, growing up on the side of a mountain with the one dirt road, right? But I was always trying. I was always out, like, getting into trouble. So, but I wasn't like, I was never I think I'll just stay home person. I hated being home.
Yeah.
I hated being home. I spent a lot of time at home in my room, but I hated it.
Hated it, huh?
I hated it. I loved being around people. I like so much, like it didn't even matter what kind of situation, like people I wouldn't want to be around. If it was like out and around people, I wanted to be around people. I wanted to be doing things so much. The more people, the better.
Wow.
Right? The more people, the better. The bigger the thing was, the better. The smaller it was, the more uncomfortable it was. Just having like one-on-one hanging out time was like, hi. I was so social. Bring on the people. I wanted to live. Like I remember there's this one conversation, without bringing names, somebody commented on how they hated neighbors, and it was an adult that was just like, ugh, how they hated neighbors, didn't want anybody close to them, and they would just like have to comment on how terrible other living arrangements, like watching Full House, the intro to Full House, and the San Francisco houses right next to each other. And they'd go crazy, just, take me out and shoot me, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I would adore that.
That would be your ideal.
That was my ideal. Like, I love that. The thought of living in an apartment one day with all these people, I loved that. I wanted people. And now I'm definitely not a, take me out and shoot me kind of mentality. Probably shouldn't say that.
But what now you want?
Okay, that
solitude.
was a quoting the person and their descriptive of what it was like for them. I really apologize for any triggering that. Jesus Christ. Whew. I am sorry. I was quoting the descriptor that the person gave on the contrast of, I can't even talk now, I'm panicking.
You can just move on. It's okay.
But for me, that was ideal. And now I want space, now, like you said, you were so surprised.
We're learning so much about, like, as we start this, as we start the healing process. But for me, it's like when we started to learn about more and more in depth about the chakras and the deficient and the, not just deficient, excessive, right? So whether it's an excessive chakra or a deficient chakra and how it manifests. And we both had experiences with each one, recognizing that different phases of our life, we were at different stages, right? And so it's like I used to be, like, for example, my heart chakra. That one actually has been probably pretty closed off most of my life. It's been pretty deficient most of my life. Maybe not. But anyways, it's like we go to the extremes of these things, right? Where we swing out to the spots on the end of the spectrum where we are one way. Like, you used to be super extroverted, and now you're not quite so much that. A little bit more introverted, right? And I think I feel the same way. I wasn't quite to the extreme of, I didn't like large groups of people. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, because it's the same thing where we learn more about ADHD stuff. I never liked, like, when you're a teenager and you get your driver's license and then you're hopping into the car with everybody and your car's full of, far too many people without seatbelts. And everybody's talking and it's loud and somebody's playing music and it's all of this stuff that's taking place. That was so hard for me.
Really?
I hated that.
I can see that.
Like, it was just too much.
That was heaven.
If I'm in a car full of people, the radio has to be either off, ideally. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I prefer, radio off, so that we can actually have a conversation. But when people try to have a conversation over the radio, I cannot handle it. It's too much for me. Like, I start to get very, very panicked and anxious and I can't focus. So if I'm driving, it's a nightmare, even if I'm in the passenger seat. Like, we experience this all the time still, where it's like, as soon as I get into the car and you have the radio on from before, I have to turn it off immediately. It's just too much noise. Like, the auditory issues that I have been there forever. So I haven't swung to some other extreme with it. But I did like hanging out with people, but it's funny because I always just wanted to talk. Like, I always just wanted to communicate and connect. I didn't want a big party with lots of people. That, to me, I always felt very uncomfortable in those experiences.
Hence the alcohol.
So I was always the person that would be like hanging out outside or looking for those smaller groups of people that weren't like in the main, do you know what I mean, part of the house or whatever. And I never realized that, obviously, growing up, but it's totally because of the overwhelm of all of that sensory input.
Wow. Yeah, like your description of the car, like I see that, like that hasn't like shifted for you. Like that was me. Like that was like how our kids, like the loud music and screaming to have the conversation and laughing back and forth. That was like,
stand that.
It is so hard for me now. I like lose my shit. I try, but I get it. So I can endure it for a while unless my anxiety is too high. Then.
Yeah.
Because that was like me. That was...
Even you and I, when we try to have a conversation and there's something playing on the radio, it's really, really hard. It's just the two of us.
Yeah. When you turn it down when we talk, like there's part of me, like I need it like turned down to a point so we're not shouting because the shouting is too much. But when you silence it to talk, I feel like I'm fucking in trouble.
Really?
It's like, oh God, no, all the tension. I can't talk. Like, it's like I'm in trouble.
Does it make sense that it's just me? Not like I can't do that. Like,
of course.
It's just too much for me auditorially to even be present.
That makes total sense. Like I have this same like auditory flip where I can't, like just before we started, I'm like, what do you need? I need nothing to touch me and no sound. My sensory was too much. But also like that focused energy, when it gets too quiet, like I can totally make sense of why I wanted loud. I wanted people. I wanted like there was safety in that. The quiet, the focused energy was not safe. So the more people, the better I felt. The more people, the less focused on I felt. Like I wasn't like to stand out. No. I do not like to stand out. I liked the big group, and I did not like to be the center of attention. That would, oh God, no.
Yeah.
God, I liked where I could like blend. I like the watercolor. You couldn't, like, I wasn't bold. I just like blend. Nobody could see me. To have that focus was.
Is there a part of you that wishes you were more extroverted today?
Yes, so much.
Yeah.
More extroverted and less agoraphobic. I'm not agoraphobic.
What do you think's contributed to it?
Well, there's sections, like I can see things that shifted throughout the years. I see when I first just stopped feeling like I know the pinpoint moment of when I went from crowds and people to nothing is okay, and I went whoom, and went introverted. And then it's just like increased. It's just
was
like
that trauma?
It was trauma.
Okay. Was that your good friend trauma?
Honestly, the pandemic has made it worse than it's ever, because I got really comfortable staying home.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't hard for me to stay home with just like family, like, and I luckily have a good family, so I like to, I was around. I can see other situations that would have like past lives that would have been I don't know that I would have made it through that. I don't know, like it's so hard. But I was lucky enough to be around people that I liked. So being able to stay home and get that time with people that I liked, it really made it hard to want to do anything else. Yeah. And then every time you went out, it was not only is it scary, you know, there's all this intense, there's all this emotion everywhere. And then the pressure of, are you going to get something that's going to kill you? And are you going to give something? Are you going to be responsible for like the COVID thing? Like I'm going to get poisoned by somebody, or I'm going to poison somebody with my presence, my being. And it really, like, I know you don't want to talk about this, but that was a big contributing factor of making it harder. And then we started doing all this trauma work, and I can see how, like, all the things surfacing. So, I don't know. It's just all combination of intensity. And I don't know. I'm slowing down. I like to be at home. I don't need all the noise now to cover up my own thoughts and to cover up what I'm really feeling.
I wish we had like, see, I say this and I don't know if I actually wish this or if this was just like some part of me that thinks that I wish is that I wish is this. But it's like, I wish we had a small group of, like, how beautiful would it be on one level, right? Where maybe we live in a community, in a very small community. I'm talking like 50 people or something, nothing big. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you could go down to the community center or whatever, right? You could go down to the gazebo that's in the center underneath the big tree and just hang out.
Yeah.
Like there'd be people down there, you know, reading, or, you know, maybe every morning we could go down there and do yoga together with people, but it would just be these small groups of like hangout. I think about just that aspect of some of the best times with friends is the times when you're not doing anything, right? Yeah, it's fun to go do stuff and it's fun to have an activity that you're doing. But like my favorite thing to do is just to hang out with people and talk.
I like that now.
Right?
It's like, why do we have to go do something? Let's just talk.
Exactly.
I don't want to go do something.
Yeah. I don't want to go to bowling,
right.
Or I definitely don't want to go to the bar. That's another thing. Like I can't stand, I've always tried to like those environments, never have.
Yeah.
I've never liked a club. I've never liked a bar with lots of people and loud noises.
Yeah.
You can't have a conversation. I'm like, why are we here trying to yell over the music or the people next to us? It always seemed so asinine to me. But that's what I would like. I would like a small group of people that we could come together with on a regular basis, right? And just hang out.
Yeah.
And just talk.
See, that's like, I want that. Like, I would like that too. But to have it to be easy. Like somebody that, like, you don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be an event to do something. You don't have to, like, create a bunch of food or, like,
right.
Who cares if you didn't vacuum or like, I don't know. The person that your hair is, because my hair's, like, I don't want to have to get dressed. Not saying, like, I don't want to have to, like, dress up or, like, put on an effort to be around people. And I don't want people to have to do that to be around me.
Yeah.
It's like that, just that natural flow.
What if it was just like a fire? Like if in the evenings you could go down to the fire and hang out with people and visit.
That would be awesome.
And that's all it was.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes somebody, like everybody, whoever got down to the fire pit first was responsible for making the fire.
Yeah.
And then it was like sometimes people would bring stuff and you could snack and eat, but it didn't matter. Like that wasn't the point, right? It's like you didn't have to bring a potluck to come to the potluck. You could just come hang out.
Yeah, just come as you are.
I think we should probably create that somewhere.
Yeah. Well, we have a fire pit in our backyard.
Right? We could invite people over.
Be like, there's no expectations.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to bring anything.
Yeah.
Also, stuff probably won't be there. So what? Bring you. Bring you and your...
I thought you said Steph.
So Steph probably won't be. Steph might not be there. I might be like, turns out I had this thing.
See, I don't even know who. I mean, I can think of a couple of people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
It's really hard for me. Like, that's one of the things that, like, that's a big shift for me is I can no longer, happily, a part of my growth, I no longer do superficial relationships. I no longer do, like, mediocre, just not real relationships. I need connection, like somebody that's going to show up, and I'm working on showing up myself and not being the one that just is the caretaker. But I need real connections, I don't want to sit here and just like be polite and have polite conversations and I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't need the big, I need the close, like somebody that's I want real, I'm not afraid of intimacy anymore. I need intimacy. And when it's not that kind of, like, even that word right there, there's part of me that's like, what? Intimacy? No.
I know. I felt what you just said out into the universe, and the universe said, copy, message received. And then internally, Stephanie went, oh, fuck. Shit, what did I just say?
Right? That's hard. That's hard for me, but also I can't not have it now. It's just...
It's needed, huh?
It's needed. And I no longer have space or time for untrustworthy people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of them around. But that means that now that I'm ready for this, is that I'm ready to open up to, and I have been, to the I feel like the bigger pond of people that are trustworthy. I kept looking in the same you know, I kept like, I'm in this pond and I keep looking for instead of being like, why am I in this pond? I'm going to go jump in the ocean, you know? So I don't know.
Maybe we need to move towards this idea of, because we're eventually going to move and settle somewhere, right? Mm. But maybe we open up to the idea of one of those intentional communities somewhere where we have enough of our space to feel like we have our space and our freedom.
Yeah. I need to look.
But then also have the connection readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We've got a couple. I won't speak for you. I'm sorry. It's just like the people that I say that I can think about in my space are basically people you know too. There's a few that I know that you don't, that are that.
Yeah.
But I can think of, like right now, a handful of people that I really, that I feel are safe and that is not, I don't know. I feel like we could have that here too. Like there's a few people. Like,
at our house? Or what do you mean?
Okay, I'm getting nervous. I'm getting nervous because it's that thing that I also don't want to make anybody feel bad or feel left out too. And so I can think of,
should we
name them? And it's funny because it's like the people that I feel this about are people that have listened to this episode, or not this episode, but to this podcast and they're like, oh, it's not me. And I'm like, it's you. It's totally you.
It's totally you.
You are the one that I would be very comfortable being around, and I wish that we could be more around.
Yeah.
And then there's, so yeah, I don't know how to, also, I don't know how, there was a thing. I actually don't want to go in that direction. Okay. I just direction shifted right in the middle of that. So
it's okay.
Moving on. So what do you think about, so yeah, the move, and we could go here, but what about where we are now? What do you think about?
I think about, because Mark Johnson, he's been on the podcast, and I feel like that's what Mark does. Yeah. Mark has, he's got his home up there in Ogden, and you'll see it online all the time on social media, on Facebook and stuff like that. He'll just throw it out where it's like, we're hanging out Friday night. Anybody who wants to come can just come and hang out.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't, it's not like a specific party with an intention or a barbecue, or it's just random spur of the moment, hanging out tonight. Anybody wants to come over and hang out. And I'm like, fuck, I wish we lived closer to Mark.
Right.
Because I would love to just go hang out. And I've thought about creating the same thing and doing the same thing of just like, hey, this is happening. And maybe that's what we do. Maybe we just try it.
Yeah. What about the people that we don't want to show up? Because there are those too.
That's the thing, right?
Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable in my own home, and I won't. Like, I'm done with that.
So then,
my home no longer gets to feel that way.
So then what's the solution? Because if we just if we just threw it out on Facebook, this Friday we're going to hang out. Anybody wants to come over, hang out.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
And then you have to run the risk of all the people that you don't like.
Well, it's not just a don't like. It's like, if you are not a safe person, I don't need to waste my time on you. I am too valuable to spend my precious time and energy on someone who is not a safe place. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them, but if they're not safe for me to be around, I'm too valuable to spend time in places where and with people that are not safe.
So then we could just send the people that we want to come like a text message. Just a simple thing of like,
there is that.
Right? We don't have to put it out into the land of Facebook.
I'm like, no.
This will never work.
Like,
if only there was some other way to communicate with people. Well, nope, just Facebook. That's the only way. Right? We could just send text messages. Yeah. And then whoever shows up, shows up. That's a thing we could do.
That is a thing. There is one space so far that has been pretty safe that we could throw it out on.
What's that?
community page. So far, our community page are people that, that I'm like, yes, you can show up.
They could come hang out.
Yes.
Well, maybe this is what we need to do, is maybe we need to start getting to this spot in our life where we feel comfortable enough to invite people to come hang out with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's like just that thing right there of that expectations. Like, we don't have to do anything, and people don't have to do anything. It's like this thing of like, when you have people over, you feel like you have to provide all of this. Like, if you want to be around me, there's expectations and there are things that I have to do to earn the right for you to come spend your time with me. I have to prove and provide that I have something to offer you.
Yeah.
Because just time with me isn't enough. And like, that mentality is not there. That needs to be shifted. And then the mentality that, oh, if I'm showing up at your house, I have to provide something to earn the right to be in your space. And like, why do we do that to each other? Like, I don't need to, like, me being me
is enough, right?
Is enough. You being you is enough. And also, like, food's cool. We like to eat. If that happens, that happens. But it's not a...
If you want to bring food, that'd be great.
No, but like, not that I'm just like saying, it's not that we can't do things like that. But like, it doesn't cost money other than gas, Jesus, to try and get somewhere. It doesn't cost you anything to show up.
Yeah.
You just get to show up. And it doesn't cost me anything to like open up or show up. We just get to do that. All of these expectations of it has to cost. And then you have to like get yourself presentable, because just where you are at that moment isn't enough. You better like clean up and like all of these. I'm not saying, work out in the yard all day and show up and, plop all your dust and weeds in your hair all over the front. I'm not saying that. But you don't have to like wrap yourself up in a bow to be around people.
Yeah.
Like, take off the bows. Like, forget all, just show as you are. I want an as you are environment. That's what I want to create, an as you are environment. I like as you are. That's like, yeah. What do you think?
I think this is actually bringing up a lot of things for me. It's interesting. So I think about the first and foremost, when we contemplate this idea, it's really silly because it's the simplest thing, right?
Right. It's
like zero obligation, no requirement necessary, right? It's just simply, if you choose and you'd like to, come hang out. And if you don't, no hard feelings, that's totally fine.
Yeah. No obligation.
And
how does that feel?
Immediately, it feels great initially.
Right.
So like, one feels great. Like, that'd be so cool.
That's
Let's do that.
That's a great theory.
Let's do that. Right? We're doing that. And then immediately following that response or that feeling is, for me, the next thing is, nobody's going to come. And then how am I going to feel sitting there? Like, I'm picturing it now. I'm picturing us sitting in our backyard, where we went through the effort of putting our, and went through the effort.
That's the thing. There's no effort. We're not doing an effort.
Yeah.
We're taking the effort away.
This is my mindset, where it's just like, we go through the process of doing this thing, and then nobody shows up. And then, I mean, not 100%, but like 99.9% certain that I'm going to feel rejected.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel less than, and I'm going to feel like people don't like me and didn't show up because, right, pick, whatever. There's an endless list of reasons why I think people wouldn't show up. And then I think, well, all of that's really silly. So just move past that. Okay. And then it's like, people show up. Then what?
You got to provide something.
Got to do something.
Can't just sit here.
Can't just
what
sit
can I
here.
get you?
Right.
Like, caretaker, come out immediately.
Right.
Oh, so let me earn my worth.
How are we going to spend this next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or something like that? Oh,
I must entertain and provide.
We're just going to talk? Okay.
I could bring out the loud music.
Right. So I'm sitting there thinking of all of these different things of actually how uncomfortable I am in those spaces.
Yeah.
And how uncomfortable I am to sit there with people who there are some people that I feel we're very comfortable with and I could do that with. And then it's like, wow, I have a lot of problems.
Right?
I have a lot of issues. And
so do they.
I wish I didn't. Like, I wish it was way easier.
Yeah.
And so maybe we just need to start.
Maybe we
We just need to practice it and start seeing what happens. Right.
And it is okay. Like, cause I can think of like certain like communities that you have and that a little bit that I have where there's some people that you want to invite from that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people that I want to invite from that. But not everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody. And it doesn't mean that and seeing that, I run the risk of where I start to feel like, oh, never mind, just bag it all. Because then it's like, then people are getting left out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make people feel bad. So never mind, just bag it all. Because you can't say, well, I want to like invite you, but not you.
So I think about that part.
And then I'm like, never mind, forget it. Forget it all. Bag it all.
What if the person that you don't want to show up shows up? Then does it become...
I'll never do it again.
Does it become that? Or does
would.
it become your opportunity
to say...
to heal that shadow?
To heal that shadow? Well, hey, don't touch you right now. Keep your toes over there, please.
Sorry.
There's people that I'm thinking of right now that I wouldn't invite, but it's just because I don't have that connection with. But I like, and I would not mind them showing up.
Okay.
But then it just gets to a point of where there's too many people. And I'm sorry, I'm starting off small.
What's too many people?
I don't know, 3? One person at a time. Then it's just like then it becomes overwhelming. I need to start small. I don't have to do everything. I don't have to be at optimum level when I'm just starting. I'm starting.
Does it feel like I'm saying that?
It does. It's like, what's too many people?
I posed a what if question.
Whatever.
It had nothing to do with quantity.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. So I can think of that, and that wouldn't be an issue. But there are people and there's a couple that I do not want to show up.
Yeah.
And is that an opportunity to heal the shadow? Absolutely. Do I have to do that at my house in my safe space? Does everything have to be an opportunity to heal a shadow? Or can I say, this is my boundary. You are not a safe person and I don't have to spend my time here. Yeah, absolutely. Not everything has to be a shadow healing moment. I can say, you don't deserve my time. Not that you don't deserve time. You do. You deserve time. You're a person. Go live your life. You don't deserve my time.
Yeah.
And that means that I also don't deserve your time. We are not a healthy fit.
So then do you ask the person to leave?
In my perfect world, yes. What would happen is I'll never do this, or they show up and then I'll just close that down.
Yeah.
And I will just leave because I am working on that. I won't set out and spend time with that person because I have these boundaries, right? I have these feelings. And I can think of 2 people in my life where I do not hold that, but I'm working there. And also I may never get there. I won't search it out, but I won't spend time there. So I just don't participate in those things, and I don't have to. And I really resent you putting me in the hot seat right now. So I'm going to put that candle under you and put you in the hot seat now.
I was just having a conversation, babe. There wasn't a hot seat to be put you in.
I feel a little hot right now.
What
about you? What about you? Because I have people... I pretty much don't. Yeah, I do. There's people that you don't want to spend time with that would be really uncomfortable for you if they came online.
Of course.
So how would you handle that?
I mean, truthfully, how I would handle that is just uncomfortably.
Yeah.
Right? I was trying to think of, is there a healthy way? And there definitely is. I just can't imagine it.
Yeah.
But is there a healthy way to ask that person to leave?
Yeah. What's the reality of that person really showing up to?
Yeah. I mean, in this scenario, in this really never going to happen scenario that we've somehow created for ourselves,
It's
first off, there's a very slim chance that we're inviting anybody over for a fire.
and the people that we have these boundaries against, it's not like they don't know.
Right.
There's a couple. No.
And so then it's like, yeah, there's a good chance that all of this is in our heads.
Yeah.
All of it. Maybe this entire episode is in our heads. This
We're
isn't
not
really happening.
Right? But we're not the only one who goes through this thought process.
Yeah.
We are just like speaking all of this shit out loud.
You know, I don't know if people actually do go through this thought process consciously.
Really? Just, consciously.
Like it's really surface of like,
And
fuck that person.
Or in an internal battle of what we're going to do as opposed to a conscious, like, mapping it out.
No, just in the, like if there's somebody that you don't like in your life.
I really struggle with that. Like, you know, oh, okay, it is what it is. Yeah,
What do
you
you
don't
mean?
like.
You struggle with what?
I feel like I need to explain that, but you don't. Like, I'm like, well, if there's a reason I don't like, I want to, you know, honor where you're at and just be like these things. Also, I don't have to.
Yeah, you can just not like somebody.
I don't like that
Are
person.
there
How
parts
they
of
made me
yourself that you don't like?
Oh, there's a lot.
Absolutely, right? So it's no different.
So I'm not invited. All right. I don't have to do it then.
Maybe,
I uninvited myself and I don't have to do this
Maybe
now.
there's parts of yourself that aren't invited.
Oh, there's definitely parts of myself that are not invited.
Right. I think about the part of myself that is very critical and criticizing and judgmental. I don't want to bring that part to the party. That part doesn't, you know, that part needs to stay inside. Like,
yeah.
You know, for reals, like I don't want
get to come.
I don't want to sit there and judge people and
Right.
criticize people and have all of those judgmental thoughts running through my head. So they don't get to show up.
Yeah.
And
Also,
if they do show up, I'm like, hey, you're not welcome here. You know, you need to leave.
You leave. What about the parts of you that will let go any boundaries and not have any boundaries? And hope for like.
What about that part of me?
Does that part get to come?
No.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
What about.
That part is like, that part's hard to say you can't come though.
Right. Why?
Because that part to me feels like love.
Yeah. Is it. Well, okay. I'm gonna challenge a little something here because you also sparked that in me. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So that part does feel like love. That part feels like love to me, which is what made love so scary, because we were taught from a young age that love meant that you didn't get to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you had boundaries, you weren't being loving and you were being mean and selfish.
Right.
Like you show love, and unconditional love is you not having any boundaries.
Yeah. So I thought you had a question in there, like you were going to challenge me with something.
Just that awareness of it.
I'm aware of that.
And to sit with. So how does that?
It makes me really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Makes me really sad too. That awareness.
I feel really bad for the little kid inside of me that thinks that way and feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea of somehow setting up a boundary in order to protect that little kid makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about that dynamic with you and I all the time.
Yeah.
Where I set in my mind a small boundary of honoring myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it immediately makes me feel ashamed and like I'm hurting you, and that I'm just kind of like, it feels really, really shitty.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to make up for it immediately. And I want to immediately like correct it. Do you know what I mean? This is an example. We'll give an example of a real life example. And I was trying to decide if this was too personal, but it's not. When we shower together, sometimes Steph likes me to wash her back. And I like washing your back. And then it was a few weeks ago, because she always wants to wash my back. And I typically don't let her wash my back. I just don't. I never had awareness of why. It was just like, no, that's fine. Don't wash my back. And something happened a few weeks ago where I realized she was in the process. Like, I let her wash my back. And you were in the process of doing it, and I could feel all of this massive anxiety and fear coming up inside of me. And then, like, all I could focus on was, this has to stop now. Like this, like I need this to stop immediately. Like I have to stop this. And I did. And we kind of had a moment in realization and some communication in regards to why it's difficult for me to have you wash my back from like all sorts of different perspectives. Just from like the act of turning my back and exposing my back. And it feels very vulnerable. It feels very like weak, like it's a real big sign of weakness in some way. There's just a lot involved in it. And so if I'm feeling anything emotionally, or if I'm in some sort of activated state, the idea of you washing my back is just, too much for me to handle. And when we had that conversation at the time, and even henceforth, when it comes up, when we're in the shower, I feel horrible. I immediately am like, it's okay, just wash my back. It's all right. Forget it. Forget what I said. Forget that we had this conversation. It's not a big deal. I promise. I've gotten over it. I've healed it. It's not a big deal. You can just wash my back. Like that's the thing that I'm fighting against now in that space in regards to that one boundary that I set for myself. Because it feels like in doing so, I'm robbing you of the joy of washing my back and the connection that you, or the perceived connection that I think you're getting from that moment, where it's this loving, connected moment that you want, and that you, in some ways, are like craving. And by me saying, no, I don't want that right now, I'm robbing you of that emotion and that love and that connection and that experience, even though that feels really bad for me. It feels really bad and really like it brings up intense emotions inside of me. Just the simple act of like turning my back to you and having you wash my back. It seems so silly. And like I said, that boundary just feels so dangerous to me. It feels like I'm not just selfish, but like it feels like I'm saying, no, I don't love you anymore. You can't love me. We're not in love. I'm saying, no, you can't wash my back. And it's so silly because that's not what either of us are saying, right? And it's an act of like self-love. It's an act of me recognizing something. And obviously I don't have trauma with you washing my back, right? It's not something that has plagued us over the course of our relationship. All of this stuff stems from a much earlier time in my life. But it's still just so weird to like state that and to honor that part of myself and to keep that boundary. And then also there's been some times, so now it's kind of a place where it brings up something for me every time, but I kind of check in with it and I see, and like, I think it was this week at some point, maybe the last time we showered or something, but I had you wash my back not too long ago because it felt okay. Like I felt okay for that. And in that moment. So then it's the process of me being able to check in with myself and see where I'm at and also honor it regardless, right? I don't know how we went from campfires in the backyard.
We're talking about boundaries.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, like the concept and idea of boundaries for myself is something that I have been really, I don't even know if consciously is, it's kind of a new topic, a new term for me. I never thought about boundaries for myself. And so I think about actions and behaviors over the course of my life that I've had that are in opposition to, like, boundaries, subconscious boundaries that I've set for myself. And then just realizing that I don't even begin to entertain the idea of setting boundaries or honoring boundaries for myself. So that idea that boundaries are in fact love, and that unconditional love has boundaries and has structure to it. That's a foreign concept to me. And then it goes even deeper when it becomes like it's something that I can start to grasp in regards to you and in regards to our kids. I can start to see some ways that boundaries are important and actually are an act of love and are in love, right? But then it becomes an even deeper riddle and conundrum to try to figure out how that is applicable in regards to me and myself. So I've been exploring that a lot lately, trying to sit with it and figure it out. And it's like, what type of structure and routines can I set up in my life that are acts of self-love, that then the boundary is, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to set up this boundary for myself and say, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And then do the things that I say I'm going to do in regards to myself. That to me, like, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And does that then feel like or sound like a boundary? Or does that sound like something else? I'm asking.
I think all of this is a practice. Like, all of this is like, you don't need any, like, however you're going to go about doing it and seeing what feels right for you and testing out is, I don't know. I feel like you don't need my permission. You don't need anybody's permission of, like, yes, you were doing it right. That's how you do it. I think the fact that you're like, I'm experimenting here and I'm seeing what feels right and what doesn't, and I'm like willing to change, or I'm willing to like increase, like maybe that feels good, and you're like, oh, I'm like, pretty soon you've got a boundary, which I think is great. Or you're like, turns out, whatever. Whatever feels right for you, and like what really feels right for you, not just what you think, okay, you said it felt right, so that must mean I'm okay. Like, you get to experiment all over it and figure out what it means. So I feel like those are boundaries, and you're learning how to set boundaries, and you're learning what boundaries are for you and what it means, and what really, like, there's no, it's not a cut and dry, you got to figure it out. So I think that's beautiful. Figuring it out, what the boundaries mean for you. What is this boundary for you? Is this a boundary? Is this like, how do you choose to enforce this boundary? What feels right? Like, all of it is, it's your boundaries. They get to look like whatever you feel they look like. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because it's not, they get their own boundaries. You get your boundaries, and they get to look like whatever they look like. No explanation.
Yeah. Back to like our hangout campfire in our backyard. I think about the concept of, like, if there's a person in your life that you don't like, and you don't like being around for whatever reason, but then other people like and like being around, then I've always judged myself as the one that is, there's something wrong with me. I have to either learn to like that person, or I'm doing something wrong, or it's about how I see. It's not that I see something wrong with that person. I see something wrong with myself for not liking that person. So then everything becomes internalized in regards to how I'm feeling and what I need to do differently, as opposed to just realizing that we don't have to like everybody.
Yeah.
And by setting a boundary and saying, I don't want to, not only do I not want to spend time with that person, but I don't want to be in space and time with that person,
right,
is an act of self-love and setting a boundary for yourself. That's a foreign concept to me.
Right. It's like having that awareness that people show up like we're all the same, whatever, but we're also all very different. We're living very different experiences, regardless of the connection. And how one person shows up in your life is not the same way that they're showing up for somebody else in their life. So to this other person, they can be a very safe space, but that is not how they present in your life. That doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. That's just like the role that was played between the two of you.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because there is so much of, like, I feel what you're saying so much with that. Another thing that makes me feel bad, and I'm just going to speak it because it's like chewing away at me, is when I start to try and practice a boundary and then I get challenged with, well, is this an opportunity, like the shadow opportunity? It's like, you shouldn't have that boundary. You're a bad person. And it's like, oh, like that makes me feel bad. I want my boundaries. I've had no boundaries, and a lot of people have really benefited from me having no boundaries. And it's hard for people when I start to have boundaries. That's not my problem. But like, encourage, like, or you don't have to encourage my boundaries, but please don't make me feel bad for having them. And that's not what you're doing. And I went to using you statements because it was very, that's what it feels like to me. When you're like, oh, here's an opportunity for you. Like, quit asking me to violate my boundaries because I've done that enough and it really hurts. And I'll create a new boundary that will take out someone who asks me to repeatedly violate my boundaries. So
I totally understand that.
Also, I understand where you're coming from on an encouraging growth and to look at things and to be deeper and to self-reflect. But I think that comes in another point in the conversation, because I hear what you were saying and I know you weren't saying to violate my boundaries.
Definitely not.
Could you hear how it would be internalized as that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I can hear both. So maybe it's just in that time when I'm trying to set a boundary and saying just boundaries, just saying the word boundaries and like, I'm allowed to have boundaries is a practice. So many people can't even say that. I could not say that at first. Like boundaries were something that I had to, I had to respect. I had to like, here's boundaries, but I was not allowed to have any. And if I had boundaries, like I would not. Anyways, all of that we don't need to go into. So just being able to say, I have boundaries and I'm creating boundaries and I will create boundaries. I don't care if they're harsh or not right now. Like the whole thing we were talking about, but maybe in that moment when I'm saying I'm doing a boundary and it's against somebody else, maybe that's not the time of the conversation, the point of time where we jump into self-reflection or looking at shadow. Maybe that's just the point where it's like, that's okay. And then because setting a boundary is hard.
Yeah.
At this point in time, there's people that you can do it, but setting that and saying, I'm loving me enough. This isn't anything against you, but I'm loving me enough to say this isn't allowed here. Like that is work. That is effort. That is hard. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's an easy boundary.
Yeah.
But those don't need to be challenged right then.
I agree. Totally agree.
I also feel like I'm going to throw up.
I wasn't challenging the boundary either.
We said boundaries so much.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know you weren't, but I just had awareness of how that really felt. And instead of just like dealing with that, I'm like, hey, I would like this kind of support here.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I will do my best to give you that type of support. Part of my process for me is overanalyzing everything and looking at the shadow of everything. It's not necessarily not holding the boundary or saying that, there's anything wrong with the boundary, but looking at why I feel the need to put the boundary in place in the first place. What is it that I'm actually doing by setting that boundary. Is it a place of self-love? Is it unhealthy? Is it what is causing me to feel that way? What is it about the other person that I don't like? And then what is that a reflection of inside of me, and how I can heal from that and learn from that? But it never was, it never is the boundary is the bad thing, or don't do that thing. It's just the curiosity of why. Because there's plenty of people in our life, both people that we like and people that we don't like, that are just reflecting things for us.
That's true.
And my goal for myself and my process is to constantly look at that and to see why. Because I'm learning more and more and more and more about myself. So that was the intention.
Yeah.
Not a way of getting you to, or judging you for setting a boundary or saying that anything was wrong. Mm-hmm. You get to do that for yourself, right? The boundaries that you set for yourself that are important to you might not be the same that I would set for myself.
Right.
Right? But it doesn't negate the importance of what it is to you. So that was the offering, was just to look at why that person triggers you.
Okay. A boundary isn't a judgment. A boundary doesn't judge that person. It's just, it doesn't have anything to do with who they are. It's just like safe or unsafe. A boundary doesn't eliminate self-reflection. It just eliminates you participating in hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still reflecting when you can see that, but I don't have to take a bath in that. You know, that's like, it's, well, I'll just keep talking, whether like.
We do this all the time lately, Steph.
Boundary is not a judgment.
Where we talk about the exact same thing.
Indifferent.
And we get so wrapped up in the conversation that it takes like 20 minutes for us to realize that we're just talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So I hear you completely. Yeah. And I feel like we are talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. I hold my, yeah.
So.
Also, it's, yeah, I'll just let it go. I feel like we're just going to, like you said, just chase chase it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. I have another point I want to comment on. Hold on. I want to say this other last thing. Hold on.
That's how you peel the layers of where you're getting through.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes you have to talk about the same thing until we're just peeling off layers.
I know. That's how we get to the core, which then has some layers to peel off.
There is no core.
There is no core. Well, let's wrap up, babe.
Let's do it.
I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu at noon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's maybe you can't win our backdrop for May anymore, depending on when you're listening to this, but there will be a new backdrop. There is a backdrop that you can win. Go to Instagram. Also, we talked about our community page at some point in this episode. If you go to Facebook, there is a Facebook community page for the podcast that you can come join, and maybe we'll start doing like maybe we'll do like Friday night hangouts on there or something like that, where whoever shows up, and we can just hang out and talk on that. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll do a room. Maybe we won't. We'll see. No maybe pressure.
There's a campfire in our backyard this Friday. You're invited.
Maybe.
Yep. Maybe.